In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the shining core systems, there was a small planet called LSR Prime. It was a cold, rocky world with long nights and short days, but it was home to millions of people who had left Earth behind long ago. Among them lived a man named Caleb Grayson. Caleb was not a soldier, nor a leader. He was a writer, a storyteller. He spent most of his time inside a small room in his dome-shaped home, writing stories about peace, courage, and the strength of the human spirit. His tales traveled far and wide, even beyond the local colonies. His words gave hope to many who felt forgotten by the great empires of the stars. The two largest human empires in the galaxy were the Paragon Alliance and the Zenith Dominion. Both claimed to be protectors of humanity, but their wars painted the stars red. They battled for territory, resources, and control. They promised peace but only brought fear. Caleb believed that his stories could remind people that there was another way. At first he was happy to see his work reaching distant worlds. People from different colonies sent him messages, thanking him. They said his stories gave them hope. But then things began to change. Caleb started to hear strange versions of his stories. They were not about peace anymore. They were filled with violence and hate. They told people to fight for their empires, to crush their enemies. His characters had become war heroes, used to inspire soldiers to kill. The Paragon and Zenith empires had taken his words and changed them. He tried to speak out. He sent messages to the news networks and officials. He showed them the real versions of his stories. He begged them to stop the lies, but no one listened. Some said he was a liar. Others said he was just jealous of the fame. One night, his local communication hub was shut down, and soldiers came to his home. They warned him to stay quiet. They said he was spreading dangerous ideas. His friends told him to leave the planet before it was too late. Caleb knew they were right. He could not fight an empire with just words. He fled LSR Prime under a false name, traveling on cargo ships and old transports. He found a small hidden outpost near the Curzon Belt. It was a lawless region where smugglers and exiles lived. There he met Lily Drake, a brilliant engineer who had once worked for Zenith before escaping their control. Lily had read his stories and believed in them. She introduced him to Aaron Briggs, a former Navy officer who had fought in the Paragon Wars and had seen too much death. Together, the three of them formed a plan. They would not write stories anymore. They would build something stronger. Caleb remembered something his father once told him. When people steal your voice, you must speak louder. And if they try to silence you, you must find another way to be heard. Caleb was not a fighter, but he had a story to finish, and now he would write it in the stars. The galaxy was growing darker. The Paragon and Zenith empires prepared for a final war, dragging more and more colonies into their fight. Caleb knew he could not stop them alone, but he could create something that would make them listen, not with speeches but with silence. A new fleet would rise, hidden in the shadows, built not for conquest but for justice. It would not carry flags or serve any empire. It would strike fast and vanish, leaving only questions and fear behind. And when the time came, the empires would face the man whose voice they had tried to steal. In the deep of space, where stars burn cold and warships sleep beneath asteroid fields, a story was being written again, not with ink or light, but with metal and fire. Caleb Grayson was no longer just a writer. He was the silence before the storm. Caleb Grayson had once believed that stories could change the world. Now he knew they could also be stolen and used as weapons. The pain of betrayal stayed with him as he worked day and night in the small outpost near the Curzon Belt. The stars outside looked peaceful, but he knew better. Every day, news came in from distant colonies. The Paragon and Zenith empires were using his twisted stories to push young people into war. Soldiers marched under banners that quoted his words, but they no longer carried his meaning. One headline read, "Paragon Commander wins battle with Spirit of the Flame." That had been one of his peaceful stories, once about a girl who brought peace to two fighting villages. Now it had become a tale of firebombs and victory. Lily Drake worked beside him in the hidden workshop. Her hands were covered in grease and metal dust. She barely slept, using old ship parts to build something new. She had once designed ships for Zenith. Now she was building for a different cause. Aaron Briggs came in from the cold docking bay, wiping sweat from his forehead. He had been training ex-Marines who had left the Paragon Navy after seeing too much blood. They called themselves the Silent Sons, fighters who no longer trusted orders from above. "It's getting worse out there," Aaron said, dropping a data pad on the table. "Another colony just went dark. Zenith says it was a security operation, but everyone knows what that means." Caleb picked up the pad and scrolled through the report. There were photos, broken buildings, crying children, and above them flags with words he had written. It made his hands shake. "We have to do something," he said. "Not just hide and build. We need to speak back." Lily looked up, her eyes tired but clear. "With what?" "They took your voice, Caleb. If you speak now, they won't just ignore you. They'll erase you." Caleb stood slowly. "Then we won't use words." "Not yet." They had already begun building ships in secret. Fast, silent ships that didn't show on enemy scans. Lily had designed special plating to scatter signals. The ships looked like ghosts, sliding through space without a sound. They named the first ship Night Requiem. It was black, sleek, and deadly, but it held no Empire colors. Caleb insisted on that. No flag, no anthem, only silence. Soon other people began arriving at the outpost. Some had read Caleb's real stories before they were changed. Others had lost families to the wars. They brought skills, stories, and sometimes broken ships they wanted fixed. The Ghost Fleet was born, not in a dry dock but in sorrow and anger. It was made from old parts, stolen tech, and raw belief. Caleb led it, though he was never called a captain. People followed him because they trusted him. One night, as the stars turned over the outpost, Lily sat with Caleb on the edge of the landing pad. She handed him a small audio device. "I found this in Zenith records. It's a voice broadcast." Caleb listened, and his stomach turned. It was his story, the path of echoes, but changed. The original had been about a blind boy who helped unite lost colonies with music. Now it told of a boy who led soldiers into enemy bunkers, killing with perfect aim. "They turned a message of healing into murder," he whispered. Lily nodded. "They're not just stealing stories, Caleb. They're changing memory. Soon no one will remember the truth." That night, Caleb wrote a new message. Not a story, not a speech, just a single sentence. He sent it out to the Ghost Fleet, burned into each ship's core system. "We are not heroes. We are the silence they cannot control." In the weeks that followed, the Ghost Fleet moved in secret, watching battles from afar, mapping weak points in enemy networks. They never fired first. They only observed and learned. But the empires were watching too. They heard rumors of ghost ships, of silent strikes on weapons depots, of fleets that vanished into the night. Both Paragon and Zenith began to tighten control. They increased patrols, set traps, and spread lies about rogue terrorists. One day, a young pilot named Milo came to Caleb. His voice was shaking. "They arrested my sister back on Farron 4, said she had old books with your name on them. She's just a school teacher." Caleb closed his eyes. The cost of silence was rising. "We have to act," Aaron said. "Soon they'll stop whispering about us. They'll come hunting. We need to strike first, not with rage but with purpose." Lily added, "If we do this, we have to do it right. No civilians, no chaos, just one clean message. Make them afraid of silence." Caleb looked at the stars and thought of his stories, the real ones. They were written with love, but now to protect them, he would need to fight. He touched the side of the Night Requiem. As it powered up, the metal was cold, but it felt alive. They had stolen his stories. Now his warships would speak for him. The Curzon Belt was a wild place, filled with broken ships, drifting rocks, and old space junk. It was the perfect place to hide, and the perfect place to build something new. Caleb Grayson stood at the center of the main hangar, watching as sparks flew and workers moved fast between ship parts and machines. The Ghost Fleet was no longer a dream. It was becoming real. Caleb had never built a ship in his life, but now he helped lead a team that was building dozens. Some were fast scouts, others were heavy gunships. Every one of them had one thing in common: silence. Lily Drake worked without rest. She had drawn up new ship designs using her old Zenith knowledge. Her workstations were covered in blueprints, data pads, and half-finished drones. She had even created a system that let the ships glide through space with almost no sound. Their engines didn't leave heat trails. Their shields could bend radar signals. "No one will see them coming," Lily said one night, her hands stained with grease. "They won't even know what hit them." Aaron Briggs trained the pilots and soldiers. He took broken men and women, people who had been thrown away by the empires, and gave them purpose. The training was hard but fair. He taught them to move like shadows, strike with precision, and never harm civilians. "We are not here to destroy," Aaron said during every drill. "We are here to remind them that truth still matters." Caleb spent his days moving between teams, listening, planning, writing new code. He didn't carry a weapon, but his words still guided everyone. Even now he wrote stories, small ones, hidden in the ship's code, stories of freedom, unity, and hope. Soon the Ghost Fleet had grown to nearly 30 ships. Some of the pilots gave them names like Silent Star, Ember Veil, and Wraith Wind. The fleet didn't need to be large. It needed to be smart, quick, and unforgettable. One of the most unique ships was the Night Requiem. It was Caleb's flagship, shaped like a long dagger with black armor and no windows. Inside it was quiet, lit by soft blue lights. The ship had no crew quarters, only seats and controls. Everything was built for one thing: fast strikes and quick escapes. Caleb stood at the bridge of the Night Requiem and looked at the stars ahead. He still wasn't sure if he was doing the right thing, but then he would remember the news stories, the stolen words, and the lies. He had no army, no country, but he had the truth, and now he had ships to protect it. Milo, the young pilot who had lost his sister, became one of the best scouts. He flew a light ship named Whisperblade and could slip past patrols without being seen. He often returned with news from across the galaxy. Some of it was hopeful, but most of it was dark. Paragon just placed a blockade around Farron 4, Milo reported one morning. "No ships in or out. They say it's for protection, but people there are starving." Caleb nodded, his face tense. "We'll find a way to break it." Aaron frowned. "We can't just fly in. They'll blow us out of the sky." Lily leaned over a display. "Not if we come in from the dark side of the moon. I can program a fake heat signature to draw their sensors. It might give us 10 minutes. That's all we need," Caleb said. And so the Ghost Fleet launched its first real mission, not to attack, but to help. On the night of the operation, the ships moved like shadows. Milo led the scouts in first, drawing fire away. Then 3 cargo ships painted black and loaded with food and supplies flew in behind them. Caleb watched from the Night Requiem as the mission unfolded. "No weapons," he told his crew, "only speed and focus." The Paragon blockade ships never saw them. By the time they realized what was happening, the supplies had already been dropped, and the Ghost Fleet was gone. The people of Farron 4 woke to find food, medicine, and a message. "You are not alone." The voice they tried to silence still speaks. After that, the Ghost Fleet became a legend. Stories of their actions spread across the colonies. Some believed they were ghosts, others thought they were a rebel army. The empires grew angry. They sent out scouts and spies, but the Ghost Fleet always disappeared before they could be caught. Inside the Curzon Belt, more ships were being built, more pilots trained. The Ghost Fleet had no base. They moved from asteroid to asteroid, always shifting. Caleb sat alone in the engine bay of the Night Requiem one evening, listening to the soft hum of the core. He pulled out a small recorder and spoke. "They took my words. They used them to hurt people, but now we build something new. Every ship we launch is a line they cannot erase. Every mission is a story they cannot twist." He looked out at the stars, so many and so far. "We are not an army. We are a story they cannot kill." The colony of New Concord was a quiet farming world on the edge of Paragon space. It had wide green fields, clear rivers, and people who wanted nothing more than peace. But peace had become rare in the galaxy. The Paragon Empire claimed New Concord was hiding rebels, so they sent warships. Families hid in their homes, hoping the soldiers would not come. Children cried in underground shelters. The sky was filled with dark ships and the air buzzed with fear. But far above, in the shadows of space, the Ghost Fleet was watching. Caleb Grayson stood on the bridge of the Night Requiem. His eyes were fixed on the colony below. He knew this was the moment they had trained for. The Paragon fleet was too large for a full battle, but there was still a way to act. "They've blocked all signals," said Milo, who was scanning the area. "New Concord can't call for help." "Then we make sure they know someone is listening," Caleb replied. Lily Drake sat at the control panel, checking the stealth systems.
We're invisible to them for now, but once we move in close they'll see us." Aaron Briggs looked at the holo map, marking weak points in the enemy line. "We don't hit them head on, we strike their command ship, disable it, and the rest will fall apart." Caleb nodded. "No killing unless we have no choice. We show them we can fight without becoming like them." The Night Requiem moved first, gliding through the black space like a shadow. Behind it came 5 other ships, each designed for speed and silence. They moved around the Paragon fleet, avoiding patrols and scanning lines. When they reached the command ship, Lily activated a signal jammer. The enemy's systems flickered. Confused, "Now," Aaron said into the comms. A boarding team shot out from one of the ships, their small craft locking onto the enemy hull. They used tools to cut through metal and slipped inside without a sound. The Paragon crew didn't even know they were there until it was too late. Inside the command ship, the team moved fast. They didn't shoot unless they had to. They used stun weapons, flash bombs, and quick thinking. In less than 10 minutes, the bridge was under Ghost Fleet control. Caleb sent a signal back to the Paragon fleet. It played on all their screens. "You are attacking peaceful people with lies built from stolen words. This is your warning. Leave or lose your power to speak." For a moment there was silence. Then the rest of the Paragon ships started to pull back. Their orders were gone and fear had taken their place. On the ground, the people of New Concord looked up and saw the sky begin to clear. The dark shapes were leaving, and in their place came a soft light. Food and medical supplies dropped from small ships with no markings. No one saw who dropped them, but they understood the message. Milo flew down with the scout team to check on the colony. The people were scared but thankful. An old farmer handed him a basket of fruit and said, "We thought no one cared, but someone still remembers what truth looks like." Back in orbit, the Ghost Fleet didn't wait. They knew Paragon would return, stronger and angrier. Caleb gave the order to leave, but they didn't go far. They left sensors and small drones to keep watch. They wanted to be ready if the colony was threatened again. Aaron sat with Caleb in the command room of the Night Requiem. "We just made ourselves a target. We were already won," Caleb said quietly. "But now they know we're not just ghosts, we can fight back." Lily joined them, a tired smile on her face, "And we didn't kill anyone who didn't force us. That matters." News of the attack spread fast. The Paragon Empire tried to hide what happened, but people talked. Stories traveled from ship to ship, from planet to planet. They spoke of black ships, silent warriors, and a voice that spoke truth in the middle of war. Some called them rebels, others called them saviors, but most just called them the Ghost Fleet. Caleb sat alone that night, writing again. He didn't write for fame or praise, he wrote to remember, to keep the truth alive. He finished his latest story and whispered to himself, "One day they'll know the full story, not the version twisted by power, but the one written in silence and fire." Outside, the stars blinked gently, as if they were listening. The Ghost Fleet was growing bolder. Their missions were fast, silent, and always successful. Paragon ships feared the black shadows in the stars. Caleb Grayson watched as more colonies found courage. They spoke the truth again. They shared his real stories, not the twisted ones used by empires. But power does not stay quiet for long. While Paragon pulled back, the Zenith Dominion had other plans. They did not just want to destroy the Ghost Fleet, they wanted to break it from within. One day, a message reached the Night Requiem. It came on an old channel once used for peace talks. The voice was calm and careful. "Caleb Grayson, this is Ambassador Norell of the Zenith Dominion. We request a meeting. We offer no weapons, only words. Let us speak, one writer to another." Aaron Briggs didn't like it. "It's a trap. They know we hurt Paragon. Now Zenith wants to stop us before we grow stronger." Lily Drake studied the signal. "It's clean. No hidden code. No weapon lock. But that doesn't mean it's safe." Caleb looked out at the stars. His voice was soft. "If we never talk, we become the same as them. We go but we bring backup quietly." They agreed to meet at an old space station called Venera Point. It sat between Paragon and Zenith space, long forgotten and empty. The Ghost Fleet sent 3 ships, hidden in nearby asteroid fields. The Night Requiem entered the station alone. Inside, the lights flickered, metal groaned, and silence filled the air. Caleb walked slowly, Aaron and Lily beside him. Their boots echoed down the long halls. At the center of the station, they found a table with 2 chairs. A woman in a white uniform waited for them. Her name was Dana Voss, and she said she was a friend of the ambassador. "You have made a lot of noise, Mr. Grayson," she said, her smile polite but cold. "The empires are tired of your ghost stories. Then maybe they should stop stealing them," Caleb replied. Dana Voss sighed. "Zenith is not your enemy. We only wanted to honor your vision, to use your words for the greater good. We made your name famous. You made it a weapon," Caleb said. "You used my stories to make people fight." She leaned forward. We offer a chance to end this quietly. You disappear and we clear your name. Let us shape the story from here with order, not chaos." Caleb stood up. Truth doesn't need to be shaped. It just needs to be heard. As he turned to leave, alarms blared. The lights turned red. Lily checked her tablet. They planted a virus in the ship system. They're trying to shut down the Requiem. Aaron drew his blaster. "We're getting out now, back at the night Requiem." Chaos had started. Small drones launched from hidden parts of the station were swarming the ship. Milo and the crew fought hard, firing auto turrets and dodging attacks. Lily ran to the engine room and plugged in her override codes. The virus was spreading fast. If it reached the core, they would be dead. "Almost there," she whispered, sweat on her face. One drone reached the bridge, heading for Caleb, but before it could hit, a small scout ship rammed into it, breaking it apart. The pilot was Cole Harper, a young man who had always wanted to be a hero. The crash saved the night Requiem, but Cole's ship was gone. Lily finally shut down the virus, and the engines roared back to life. Caleb took the controls and pulled the ship out of the station. Ghost Fleet backup cleared a path through the enemy drones. They escaped, but not without scars. In the quiet after the battle, Caleb stood in the medbay, looking at Cole's empty chair. Aaron came in, his face hard. "He believed in you. They all do. But this peace talk was a trick. We don't give them another chance." Caleb nodded slowly. No more words for the empires, only action. News of the Zenith trap spread fast. Other colonies saw it for what it was, a lie wrapped in smiles. More people began to question the empires. More joined the Ghost Fleet. Lily added new security to the ships. No more viruses, no more tricks. The Ghost Fleet became stronger, smarter, and harder to find. And Caleb wrote again, not for peace this time, but to remember. He wrote of Cole, of sacrifice, of courage in the face of betrayal. He no longer hoped the empires would change. Now he planned to outlast them. The Ghost Fleet had become a symbol of hope, but also a symbol of fear. For every colony they helped, an empire lost control. The Paragon and Zenith leaders were no longer just angry. They were afraid. They had tried to destroy the Ghost Fleet with traps and lies, and both had failed. Now the two empires decided to join forces. They called their new team the Iron Chorus, a massive task force made from the best ships and soldiers from both sides. At the head of this force stood Admiral Dana Holt, a commander with a heart of stone and a history full of destroyed worlds. "We will find them," she told her officers. "And when we do, we erase every trace, every story, every ship, every name." Caleb Grayson heard the news in the deep shadows of the Kherson Belt. He sat quietly in the command room of the Night Requiem. Reading the reports, the Iron Chorus had already attacked 2 colonies suspected of helping the Ghost Fleet. Thousands had died. Aaron Briggs paced the room, angry and restless. "They're burning worlds just to scare people. This is no longer just about us." Lily Drake placed a small chip on the table. "I found something. They're planning a full sweep through the Dilara Nebula. It's dangerous, but it could be our chance." Caleb leaned forward. "The nebula has heavy storms, thick dust, hard to scan. It could hide us. It could also kill us," Aaron said. "But we might never get another shot at them." For the next 3 days, the Ghost Fleet moved fast. They sent small probes into the nebula, mapping the paths through the clouds of gas and lightning. The ships were fitted with new stealth layers, and Lily worked day and night on the engines. Inside the nebula, light flickered and the stars were hidden. The Ghost Fleet waited like hunters, watching. Their plan was simple: let the Iron Chorus come in, get surrounded, and then strike hard and fast. On the 4th day, the Iron Chorus entered the nebula. Their ships were larger, louder, and proud. They sent out signals, calling the Ghost Fleet cowards. They thought they were alone in the storm, but Caleb watched from the dark. He gave the signal, and the first move began. Milo and the scout team released echo drones, small machines that created fake heat and movement. The Iron Chorus turned toward them, thinking they had found the enemy. That was when the real attack began. The Night Requiem and its sister ships appeared from behind the clouds, moving with speed and silence. They targeted engines and communication arrays, not weapons. They wanted to confuse, not destroy. Explosions lit the storm, but no one could tell where they came from. The Iron Chorus ships fired blindly, hitting their own or nothing at all. Admiral Holt stood on the bridge of her command ship, shouting orders. "Find them, burn them out of the sky." But her radar was broken, her sensors were jammed, and her captains were silent. The Ghost Fleet had split her force into pieces. Aaron led a boarding team onto a cruiser. They found scared soldiers, not killers. He gave them a choice: surrender or float. Most surrendered. Lily controlled the battle from the Night Requiem. guiding drone strikes and shield boosts. Her hands moved fast over controls, eyes locked on patterns only she could understand. Caleb watched it all from the main screen. He saw how chaos turned to silence, how the Iron Chorus was falling apart. After 2 hours, the storm began to clear, and the Ghost Fleet was gone. Not a single ship was lost, but 10 ships from the Iron Chorus were drifting, empty or broken. Admiral Holt's command ship barely escaped. She stared at the quiet stars around her and realized the truth. She had lost. Back at the outpost, the crew of the Ghost Fleet rested. Some laughed for the first time in weeks. Some cried for those who had not made it home. Caleb stood before them, his voice calm. You did not fight for glory. You did not fight for power. You fought for the truth. And you showed the galaxy that silence is stronger than fear. News of the battle spread like fire. Colonies began to rise, not with weapons but with words. They played Caleb's old stories in the streets. They refused to send soldiers to the empires. They wrote messages on walls, simple and clear. We are the silence. We are the truth. The Iron Chorus returned to their space, damaged and humiliated. The empires tried to hide the truth, but they could not. Caleb returned to his writing desk inside the night requiem. He opened his journal and wrote one line. When voices are stolen, silence becomes the loudest sound. Outside, the stars burned quietly as the Ghost Fleet prepared for whatever came next.
The stars were quiet after the battle in the Delara Nebula. The Iron Chorus had failed, and the empires were silent. But silence was not enough for Caleb Grayson. He knew it was time to tell the truth, not just through action, but with words again. He sat in the command room of the night requiem and looked at the old recorder on his desk. It was the same one he had used years ago to share his first stories. Back then he had spoken of peace, of unity, and of the strength of the human spirit. Now he pressed the red button. "This is Caleb Grayson," he said, his voice steady. "Some of you may remember my stories. Some of you may have heard them turned into lies, twisted into war songs. I did not write them for war. I wrote them to heal." He spoke for 20 minutes, not with anger, but with sorrow. He shared how the Paragon and Zenith empires had stolen his stories and used them to control people. He played clips of the real versions, stories filled with hope. He showed the differences side by side, so everyone could see what had been taken. Then he spoke of the Ghost Fleet, not as warriors, but as defenders of truth. "We do not want to rule. We do not want power. We want you to remember who we are, who we were before the wars." Lily helped him package the message. It was sent across the galaxy using secret channels, relay satellites, and hidden repeaters. Aaron made sure no Empire system could stop it. The message reached colony after colony. People stopped to listen. In busy markets, in quiet schools, in underground bunkers, they heard Caleb's voice, calm and honest. On a mining station near the edge of Zenith space, a group of workers threw down their tools and played the message out loud. One of them said, "I remember this story. My mother told it to me before she died. It didn't end in war. It ended in peace." On a Paragon training base, a young cadet hid the message on his tablet and showed it to his friends. They watched in silence. Their faces changed as they saw what had been taken from them. Across the stars, people began to question. They began to remember. The empires were quick to respond. Zenith called the message false. Paragon called it rebel propaganda. But the people had already seen the truth. Protests began on several planets. Crowds marched holding signs with quotes from Caleb's original stories. Some painted the Ghost Fleet symbol on walls, a black circle with a single white flame inside. Caleb sat with Aaron and Lily in the night requiem's planning room. They watched the news screens fill with images of people standing up. Aaron smiled a little. "They're finally hearing you." Lily nodded. "We did more with one message than we did with 10 battles." But Caleb remained calm. "The empires won't give up. They'll try to spin this or crush it with fear." And he was right. Soon Zenith sent soldiers to stop the protests. Paragon started searching for anyone who had shared the message. But people were not afraid like before. They passed the story by word of mouth. They copied it by hand if needed. A group of teachers on a world called Elira created small books with Caleb's real stories. They handed them out to children in secret. One girl wrote to the Ghost Fleet, Thank you for giving us something true. The Ghost Fleet stayed hidden but ready. They helped where they could, always careful not to bring war to the people they wanted to protect. One night, Milo came to Caleb with a report. A ship escaped from a Zenith prison moon. They say the prisoners were held for reading your stories. Caleb closed his eyes. We have to find them. The night Requiem changed course. Following the trail of the escaped ship, they found it drifting near an old station, damaged and powerless. Aaron and a rescue team brought the survivors aboard. They were weak but alive. One of them, a woman named Kayla, was once a singer who had shared Caleb's stories in music. She looked at him with tired eyes. They tried to take everything, even my voice, but your story kept me alive. Caleb helped her to a chair and held her hand. Now your voice is part of ours. The Ghost Fleet recorded a second message. This one included the voices of others, people from across the stars, reading his words, telling their stories. They called it the Memory Song, and it spread even faster than the first. Not even the empires could block it. Caleb knew this was not the end. The empires would keep fighting, but the message had been restored, and the people would not forget. As the Ghost Fleet moved once more through the stars, Caleb stood at the window of the night Requiem and whispered, "The story is alive again, and they can never silence it now." The stars were no longer silent. They were filled with whispers, songs, and stories. The voice that the empires had tried to silence was now being heard on every world. But even with all the truth spreading, the war was not over. The Paragon and Zenith leaders had grown desperate. Their power was slipping, and their people were beginning to doubt them. They needed to end the Ghost Fleet before it was too late. They gathered their final strength at the Zenith capital shipyards, a massive space station built into a moon. Hundreds of warships, battle cruisers, and fighter wings were ready. They planned to launch one final campaign to crush every colony that had listened to Caleb Grayson's message. But the Ghost Fleet was already moving. Caleb stood on the bridge of the night Requiem, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. He knew this battle would be their last, one way or another. Behind him the fleet was ready. Every pilot and crew member knew what they were risking. Lily Drake had spent weeks upgrading their systems. Stronger shields, faster weapons, smarter AI controls. She checked the engine readings again and again, making sure nothing would fail. Aaron Briggs stood with his strike teams, looking over maps and plans. "This won't be like before," he told them. "This time we go in hard. We stop them from launching their war, even if we don't all make it back." The plan was simple. They would strike fast and silent, just as always, but this time they would not vanish afterward. They would hold the line. The battle began with a distraction. Small drone ships flew into the far side of the shipyard, lighting up the sky with explosions. The enemy moved to face them, thinking the Ghost Fleet was trying to escape again. But then the real attack came from the dark side of the moon. The night Requiem and its sister ships broke through the outer defenses in less than 5 minutes. They used new cloaking tech that made them almost invisible until they fired. Milo led a team of fast fighters, weaving between enemy ships, taking out weapons with sharp precision. Lily controlled the data flow, blinding the enemy sensors. Aaron and his team boarded a command carrier, moving through halls filled with smoke and fire. They planted charges, disabled engines, and called for the rest to pull out. The battle was brutal. Every second counted. Ships exploded in flashes of red and orange. Communications were broken, but the Ghost Fleet never stopped. Aaron's cruiser was hit during the retreat. A missile tore through the engine core. Aaron got most of his team out, but he stayed behind to make sure the ship would crash into one of the enemy docks. It did. Caleb saw the explosion from the night Requiem and bowed his head. He did not cry, not yet. He still had one task left. He activated the final broadcast, a signal that reached every system, even through the noise of war. "This is Caleb Grayson. This is the end of the fight. We are not here for revenge. We are not here to rule. We came to stop the lies and remind you of the truth. You can still choose who you want to be, even now." As the enemy ships started to fall back, something strange happened. Some of them stopped firing. Some opened their doors to let civilians escape. The message had reached even the enemy. When the last Zenith command carrier fell, the shipyards went dark. The war was over. The Ghost Fleet had won. Not by destroying everything, but by refusing to become monsters. Later, the night requiem landed on a small moon near the edge of the battle zone. The crew gathered to honor those they had lost. Aaron, Cole, and many others had given everything. Caleb stood before them, his voice low but clear. They tried to erase us. They turned our words into weapons, but we took them back. We spoke the truth, and the stars listened. Lily placed a small marker stone in the ground with the names of the fallen. Milo added a piece of Aaron's broken ship to the base. The people who had once followed a voice now stood as protectors of that voice. They would rebuild, not with weapons, but with stories, schools, and songs. Caleb did not return to the battlefield after that. He traveled to the worlds that had listened. He met the children who read his stories, the teachers who taught them, the rebels who had become healers. On one quiet evening, he sat under the sky of a green world and read one of his oldest stories to a small group of children. He read slowly, with a gentle voice, and at the end, he smiled. There were no more weapons, no more enemies, only stars and silence. And that silence was no longer empty. It was full of meaning.